Since Omens of Tyranny dropped, I've been playing and testing a lot, working through the best and most efficient ways to take on the Illuminate, including this video I posted Saturday, which apparently got put in YouTube algorithm timeout. It was hardly seen and mostly forgotten, which is, I guess, fine, because there were a few inaccuracies that are now going to be corrected in this video. Welcome to the channel. This is LtBuzzLitebeer, and if you want to see that previous video, I'll drop a link to it in the video description. But I went back and put in even more work testing 3 areas of the Illuminate where I saw the most feedback. And one of the results might actually shock you. We've also got a potential crossover in the works, which would be a beautiful fit for Helldivers. Remember to hit subscribe. Likes, comments, shares are wonderful. And don't forget to ring the notifications bell to stay up to date on all things Helldivers. Okay, to start off with, the last 72 hours have been insane. Helldivers went from bouncing around somewhere at the 10,000 concurrent player counts before the Game Awards to now sitting at nearly 118,000 players on a Sunday night. Saturday night, we hit over 150,000 on Steam alone, and once you add it in PlayStation, well, it only goes up from there. Not trying to get ahead of ourselves, but if this is what Arrowhead can deliver, we've now seen the potential. I wonder what and when the next thing will happen. Also, before we get into everything in this video, I've included chapters so you can skip around, go to areas you want to watch, or repeat certain sections. Make use of them, don't. It's up to you, and here we go. First up, we've got a potential upcoming crossover event coming to the game in the future, and this was found in the game files by noted Helldiver leaker Iron Sights, and it involves a collab with Killzone. Now, not everything Iron Sights finds in the game files actually makes it into the live game, but I just wanted to say back in the day, I really enjoyed playing Killzone, and the similarities would mesh nicely between these two games. I mean, both are sci-fi shooters, and as VideoGamer says in their article, quote, "As it stands, a Killzone crossover is one of the best ideas for the series' debut crossover. After all, they're both sci-fi military franchises, they both focus on fascist regimes, and they are both owned by PlayStation." I know we just got the Omens of Tyranny and Urban Legends Warbond, but drop me a comment and let me know if you would be interested in seeing Killzone make its way into Helldivers 2. Next up, I've got a couple of corrections from Saturday's video, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone that left me feedback and comments on that video as well. So let's start off with the Harvester and its weak points. You guys were spot on when you suggested shooting the connecting leg portions to the body once the shields are down. And as you can see here with both of these machine gun variants, it puts in the work and takes these things out of commission in no time flat. I'd also like to throw in here to not sleep on the HMG emplacement. It's one of my go-to strats. And if you can get it into a defensible position, it absolutely shreds Illuminate ground troops and wrecks Harvesters as well. But again, the correction is noted. Thank you, divers, for helping out with all of your feedback and comments. Keep them coming. The second item has to do with melee and the issues currently in the game relating to the extra melee damage inflicted by the Peak Physique armor passive. Now, if you are using one of the 2 new stun melee weapons, the extra melee damage only applies if you are using the melee hotkey versus swapping to your melee secondary and using the fire button. In CQC against the Voteless, they die so quickly with either attack key that you really won't notice a difference. But I did test it out against a standard Overseer with their staff, and the difference looks to be about 2 to 3 additional strikes required using the fire button versus the melee button, and again, while using the lance or baton. I've actually now gone to a 2-button solution because I still like ADSing and using the fire button when taking on the Voteless, as it allows me to be more precise with my strikes. But when I do take on an Overseer, I've now gone to the melee keybind with the weapons to apply the additional Peak Physique buffs. Just like before, I really appreciate your feedback on this one. I mean, before Omen of Tyranny dropped, I had maybe 7 to 10 total melee kills in my entire 550 plus hours of playtime because I'm always shooting my primary, but Ever since Friday, I'm now approaching 750 to almost 1,000 melee kills. But anyways, again, thank you for the feedback. It's noted and now corrected. And while we're on the subject of melee, we might as well touch on a couple of additional points about the Voteless. Now, I covered portions of this in my last Helldivers video, but again, the lore behind the Voteless is that they were formerly citizens of Super Earth who were then abducted from their colonies and twisted by the Illuminate into what we see now. The Voteless are under the Illuminate's mind control, but if you can crawl in silently and get close to them, you'll sometimes see them struggle and fight back against their evil handlers. You'll see them look down at their hands, talk to themselves, and even act like they're coming out of a trance or from a bad dream, only to then be brought back into the reality of their present-day nightmare. Also, for me personally, I haven't been able to clip this one yet, but the Voteless will also strike a salute sometimes after you kill them, before they fall to the ground, almost like they're thankful that you have now set them free. And I'm not gonna lie, but seeing this clip hits me in the feels, and it serves as a little piece of immersion that deserves the recognition. Also, a very quick side note here, the new "This is Democracy" emote from the Urban Legends Warbond is a functional melee attack. I actually tried using it in combo with my melee builds, and it's pretty cool to see in action. You can really get it going when you stand on top of, say, some stairs and kick the Voteless as they come up after you, often decapitating them in the process. So this thing really gives you some "This is Sparta" vibes, and if you haven't tried it already, you need to. Now over to all the in-game testing I've been doing for the shielded ship POIs, and I was working with not only primaries and support weapons, but stratagem strikes and barrages as well. And by the way, those are in the second round of testing just a little later in this video. Now in my last video, I saw more than a few comments saying how the shields would break based on the number of hits applied to them, which would, by the way, rule out slow firing weapons because it was based on rounds hitting the shield and should favor then rate of fire. So I picked some random weapons across the armory and began testing out this theory. First using the sickle, which by the way is a great primary and fires pretty quickly, and it's S tier versus the Illuminate frontline troops and of course those massive Voteless mobs. Now for the record, I record at 60 FPS, so when I go in and apply a time code through Premiere Pro, it gives us a timer in seconds so we can get an accurate readout of how these weapons are doing. How did the sickle do? That's 3.4 seconds of full auto firing, and I counted them 46 shots to drop the shields on just one of these ships. Also, a quick side note, the rounds fired is a crucial piece of information once I get done and kind of explain this all to you. Next, I switched over to the Knight SMG, which has the fastest RPM in the game, currently at 1380, and check out this clip. That's 1.44 seconds and 39 shots fired. You also might be asking about plasma weapons, but like we tested in my previous video, plasma weapons are ineffective versus the Illuminate shields. They eventually get the job done, but it takes forever. I saw more than a few comments about how effective the laser cannon is versus the Illuminate shield, so I had to test it. By the way, here's those results. .12 seconds of continuous fire to drop the shield, and of course no rounds fired because this thing is either on or off. How about Johan's favorite, the mighty autocannon rifle, which by the way is completely ineffective. No use even activating the timer on this one, but I want you to notice that shield ricochet icon popping up there as well. And here's the catch. That first clip was using the autocannon rifle using flak rounds. Now, watch this as we switch over to the armor-piercing ammo firing in full auto mode. That's right, 10 seconds with a reload firing full auto mode and a total of 14 rounds fired. The Stalwart is next. and it does decent at 2.43 seconds and 39 rounds spent. And finally, here's the HMG, the heavy machine gun, doing far better at only 1.3 seconds and 16 rounds fired. Now from the footage, there doesn't seem to be an armored penetration mechanic at work, or at least not one that we can visibly see, and these shields instead act as a total number of X amount that, once depleted, will then allow you access to the hull underneath. The test used not only light armor pen with the sickle up to heavy armor pen with the HMG, and everything spread across various weapon archetypes, and no hit markers appeared until we had broken the shield, and we were then hitting directly on the ship's hull. I'll need to see the data mine numbers and mechanics before determining exactly the maths at play here, but the idea that the shields deplete based on a set number of shots hitting them is not correct. For small arms and support weapons, it's more than likely a threshold set somewhere around 2,500-ish, and once that damage number is achieved, the shield then breaks. The math is approximate because even when you look at a weapon's base stats for damage, that's actually not how much damage you're going to be hitting the target for because of factors like range, and also because Helldivers uses a mechanic where once the round leaves the muzzle, its maximum damage number is immediately reduced by 1, and then decays from there. But anyways, here's the math for you to look over. The sickle, 46 shots times 55 base damage equals 2,530. The Knight SMG, 39 shots times 65 damage equals 2,535 needed to break the shield. The laser cannon, 350 damage times 7.12 seconds equals 2,492, so almost 2,500. The auto cannon, armor piercing rounds, 14 rounds times base damage of 260 equals 3,640. The stalwart, 39 rounds times 70 base damage equals 2,730. I might have been off with my counting on that one. And finally, the heavy machine gun, 16 rounds times 150 base damage equals 2,400. Overall, there's some slight variations there, like the autocannon needing that much damage to break the shield, but there was a lengthy reload in there, giving the shield time to begin to regenerate. But the shields being set at 2,500 makes sense because that's the same value used for the Terminid Spore Towers. So, in case your stratagems are all on cooldown and you need to destroy one of these ships, the testing now gives us a better understanding of everything in play here. Number one, plasma weapons are shit. They eventually break through, but it takes forever. Number two, energy weapons will get the job done, but require more time than ballistics for base damage reasons. Number three, explosives are useless. Try shooting it with a spear, and you could be here all day. Number four, not featured here, but I tried it, and the arc thrower is not effective due to aim issues. Number five, AOE, or area of effect, also doesn't look to factor in. It's just about base damage or demo force. Number six, listen to this one, the fastest support weapon to tackle one of these would actually be the Commando because of its rate of fire and damage output at 1,100 per shot. Now, if you can aim at the hatch and spam all 4 shots as quickly as possible, the first 3 are used to drop the shield because you're actually using more, like 2.3 Commando rockets for the shield, with the excess damage just evaporating, and the 4th hits the internals to the hatch to finish it off. But seriously, try it out because it is insanely fast. And finally, number 7, the it takes a certain number of shots to drop the shield theory has now been busted. For science, I also tried out the Eruptor versus the shields, which totally did not work. Flamethrowers are fun, but did nothing again because of their low base damage, no demo force, and not being able to set the shields on fire. And finally, the grenade launcher is not a solid plan right now, especially when you hit the right side door, which I think is bugged, and it's currently reflecting explosives back at you. Now over to the main event, those stratagems, because why shoot something when you can just call in a strike or orbital and be done with it? I mean, am I right? And also, this one's going to go by much faster because all I was concerned with was being able to one-shot the ships, shields and all, placing an emphasis on demo force. First up is the orbital rail cannon strike, which is confirmed and utterly devastating. Next is the orbital airburst strike, which did not one-shot or finish off the ship, but by the second airburst, it had actually stripped the shield, so I guess that's something. The Eagle Napalm airstrike is next, and it did nothing, not even drop the shields. For Grens, I tried the Mortar Sentry and even pinged and targeted the ship, which did, you guessed it. The HMG emplacement ravages the shields, but I was seeing nothing but ricochets when targeting the open hatch. Maybe I was on the wrong side, maybe it was the angle, who knows? I'll need to test it further. The Eagle Smoke Strike, again, did nothing, but hey, you never know. I had high hopes for the Eagle Airstrike, which did strip the shields, but wasn't strong enough to finish off the ship. The Eagle 110mm rocket pods yielded the same results. Shields gone, the ship remained. Orbital Gatling Barrage had a strong start, but could not finish the job. Orbital Walking Barrage is totally dependent on one of those shells directly impacting the ship, which in my test it did, so again, hey, that's something. The Orbital Laser cooked it almost immediately, but I would highly recommend you throwing the Stratagem ball directly underneath the ship you're targeting so the initial laser blast connects with the ship as it hits the planet, or it could end up wandering off chasing Voteless and other Illuminate. Orbital Precision Strike is definitely a one-shot, one-kill. And finally, my new personal favorite and sleeper stratagem, hear me out, the Orbital Gas Strike, which surprised me until I tested it. The shell that hits the planet is so devastating that if you can throw the stratagem ball underneath the lip of one of these ships, it pierces straight through their shields and hull, one-shotting them and then releasing the gas cloud to kind of finish off any remaining Voteless. Plus, with full ship upgrades, you get it back like every 75 seconds, and it has unlimited call-ins. Personally then, I would recommend using both the Orbital Precision and Gas Strikes because both can one-shot those pesky ships, both have unlimited uses, and both have short cooldown timers. You know, no offense to the big boy 500 kg, it does all of this extremely well, but the limited uses before needing to rearm takes it offline and makes it unavailable for long stretches of time, causing me to pick the other two instead. Moving on, and one of the items I received comments and questions about in the last video was which stratagem is best to use to take out the cognitive disruptor towers, and I tried them all with mixed results, with the exception of the 500 kg and Seif mini nukes, but even then, it wasn't seeing guaranteed destruction. Maybe it's just my poor aim. It's much like calling in a 380 on one of the automaton super bases. Sometimes it hits exactly what you want it to, sometimes it doesn't, in which case you're still going to have to get in close to destroy the Illuminate power circuits by hand, which again, I featured in that last video. How about the Illuminate Monoliths? Well, first off, don't you dare touch these things.
Objective critical stratagem available. Helldiver lost, sending replacement.
And second off, I tried out various methods, like shooting it with a laser cannon, didn't work, hitting it with the orbital gas strike with the shell actually contacting the monolith directly, did nothing, and I even tried the orbital laser, and it just completely ignored it and tried to barbecue me instead. But in the end, I went with either the Hellbomb option or the Seif mini nuke, with both being powerful enough to reduce this thing to rubble. And anything outside of these two explosives is not going to get the job done. Let's finish this thing off with some Illuminate dropship testing, and this is another comment I saw quite a bit on the last video. People kept asking, how do you knock these things out of the air, and what's the best method? So, it looks like anti-tank is still the surefire winner here, because I tested both the rocket and autocannon sentries as well, and each time they weren't able to target the ships fast enough and hit them for enough damage. Now, in terms of anti-tank, the spear is an easy lock-on, one-shot insta-kill, but you need to wait for the ships to slow down and get closer to the planet, or the spear is just going to miss the target and head off into space. Next is the recoilless rifle, which is an easy one-shot to the underside disc of the ships. I actually tried the grenade launcher once for science, and clearly it did not work. The Commando uses all 4 shots to the underside, but works very well, and the expendable anti-tank rockets will take 2 to destroy a single ship. So make sure there are 2 of you shooting it with eats, or call in the extra supply as soon as you see a watcher fire the flares into the air, calling in those dropships. Also, here's a quick bonus item. There are Seif SAM sites littered all around these city biomes that have elevated towers, meaning clear lines to fire up at the ships. In past rounds, we've activated 2 of these at the same time, taking control of the skies, all in the name of managed democracy. This one took me a lot of time to record and test, so I'd really appreciate you sharing it around with the rest of the Helldiver community. Let's get this information out there for all to see, and if you want to see something else tested, or just want to leave some feedback or a comment, please do so. Remember to hit subscribe and to ring that notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. All my socials, including links to today's sources, can be found in the video description. We are at this point well on our way to 249,000 channel subscribers, with my end goal being 250K by the end of the year. I know we can do it, so in case you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe. And for those of you who already have, I truly do appreciate your support. And thanks for sticking around, especially while I was away and recovering. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.